Case right now. So meaning that all those that did positive have returned either to their voluntary workouts or to their work environment. And based on the contact tracing from those positive tests, we currently have about 20 student athletes who are still in some phase 10-day quarantine period, but each of those student athletes has tested negative. So as we look forward to our fall sports, football, volleyball, soccer, and cross country, officially beginning practice during the first week, our testing protocols will be enhanced, and that will include at that point in time some rapid response testing on a weekly basis for all participating student athletes in those fall sports. And you may have seen about an hour or so ago that the NCAA released kind of their third version of their medical guidelines and recommendations that included testing prior to, at least 72 hours prior to competition, an institution, and as a conference to fall in line with those plans. And so that's the COVID kind of update. And I'll get through a few of these updates and then open it up for questions. So the outlook on football to date. I think you're all aware that on Monday, the SEC ADs Birmingham to discuss a number of issues with an obvious focus on the upcoming football season. And what I can tell you, and I think probably what you've heard this week, is that we're going to continue to be patient as a conference before making any decisions. There's several options that are on the table right now. The first option still being the 12-game schedule that for us starts on November 5th versus Nevada, followed by a road game on September 12th at Notre Dame. We can't move on to the second option until we eliminate the first option. And that first option is still very much on the table, as are other options. The impact of the Pac-12 and Big Ten decisions have been minimal. Really only two games, Colorado at Texas A&M and Alabama and USC down in Dallas. So those decisions by those other Power 5 conferences those are the only two games we lost. And so as we sit here today, what I believe from my conversations with Commissioner Sankey, that the SEC, the Big 12, and the ACC are on the same page as far as our collective desire to be patient before making any decisions. When you look at some of the in-state rivalries that exist, especially between the SEC and the ACC, it seems to make sense that Clemson should play South Carolina, and Georgia should play Georgia Tech, and Florida should play Florida State. And so just eliminating those games because you want to play a conference-only schedule, at least at this point, does not make a great deal of sense. Football games at Razorback Stadium, our operations and external team in consultation with the Arkansas Department of Health are finalizing a plan for football games at Razorback Stadium, as well as soccer and volleyball games this fall. We're working toward a goal to be able to accommodate each of the 32,700 season ticket holders who make a choice to attend the game, to continue with their season tickets, along with our students. Attending games this year is going to involve several changes. The first being mobile ticketing. There will most likely be some staggered entry times for fans, assigned entry gates. I think you will see defined directional movement of patrons on concourses and aisles, meaning when you're on the concourse, you'll go down one way and come back the other, and there'll be very little overlapping of traffic. And then we're working with Levy, session partner, to develop a pre-packaged concession item, as well as potentially pre-ordered and prepaid concession items. The field's going to look different The team box is now going to go from the 15-yard line to the 15-yard line. There will be limited, non-essential personnel on the sidelines.
Well, hello. It's our Thursday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio here on KDSJ 479 as we come to you each and every day from 1 to 2 p.m. And we continue to let you hear audio from this past weekend, last Friday's Zoom conference with Arkansas Athletic Director Hunter Yurachek. Continue to update the status of hopefully what will be a football season. As we move in throughout the day, it's going to be a chance for you to either call in. You can do so at 601-7400, or you can reach us by questions via our On the Hill Sports Talk via Facebook or our On the Hill Sports Talk LLC. You can send us questions through that. That's our YouTube live stream page. But today's going to be your day. No guess. We'll get back to the Hall Guy segment at some point. Sometimes you got to give the driver a break. I mean, we ride so much. You got to give him a break, don't you think? And I'm going to get in my guy, Demetrius Johnson. What's up, my man?
Not much chilling. How you doing today, Pat?
I'm doing real good. You you want us to touch base more on what you had spoke about. Continue your statement, and then I'll give my response, because I don't think I was able to do that yesterday.
Yeah, definitely. We were talking about just the SWAC having the contingency plan to continue the football season and cancel it for the fall and bring it up in the spring and just continue it from there. And I just want to know what you felt about what you think the SEC is going to do and how you feel if they move football to the spring.
I think the SEC is going to play. I think a lot of the major Power 5 conferences will try to stay as close to on schedule as possible. Maybe a start time of October 3rd. I'm hearing as well as a possible option, but I think they're going to stick with Plan A and exhaust every possible way to get these kids on the football field before they move on to a Plan B. There's just too much money's involved. I really like the SWAC being proactive and having Plan B already in place to play in the spring. But when you're dealing with Power 5 football, the way that the money goes, I mean, it's just going to be too much if you move it to spring. Too many sports. I mean, it'd be almost an everyday thing. And I mean, so budget-wise, how much travel? I mean, that'd be a lot. They'd be asking a lot for young student athletes, because when do these kids go to school? If fall sports gets moved to spring, that would be mine. But I'm very, very impressed that the SWAC conference was able to have this plan in place well before fall camp was even to arrive.
I think that's interesting because a lot of people don't talk about the towns. Will the towns even be built for you to have that much interaction? Let's just say fans are allowed to come to home and away games, and you got baseball having a game, now you got football having a game. So how are you going to balance that? Because a lot of those towns and cities aren't built to hold those people, hotels. But then I also look at the effect of if football doesn't happen for locally here in Fayetteville, a lot of businesses revolve around Arkansas having those football games. Like I said, mentioned those hotels, a lot of these restaurants. What do you think that's going to be like, and how are they going to try to adjust and adapt to fans not really coming in?
Those are all problems if you do move the SEC football, the fall sports, and in particular football, to the spring, because now you're trying to accommodate softball, baseball, and football. There's, like you said, Demetrius, that's a great point. There's just not enough hotels. I mean, I don't care how you slice it, dice it, there's just not going to be enough hotel space to accommodate. And I know you want to create as the best fan base environment that you can for your prospective athletes, but I mean, that's going to be a big time issue, and especially in the SEC with the way that these fans and these schools support their athletic programs. I mean, you may have Mississippi State that's real good in baseball, but this year may not be a football year. But so how do you accommodate those two crowds if you're trying to move everything to the spring? Vanderbilt, you're going to have more Vanderbilt fans for baseball than per se football. So how do where do you mark the line and say, hey, well, you get this amount of the hotel and you get this amount of the hotel, and that's not even counting softball.
And then I even think about like school resources, team meals. There's going to be budget cuts somewhere across the board, right, whether that's coming from expenses with travel, food. There's going to be cuts coming from somewhere within the program. So I'm just interested. I'm interested in to see how they balance giving all these kids not only the safety precautions, but also the necessities they need to be successful and then continue, with their daily lives with this COVID thing going on.
It was reported today also that the University of Oklahoma has tested 96 football players and 0 positive tests. 0 positive tests. So, I mean, that's really big, and I think that's something that we have to look at. The universities aren't, not aware. I mean, I'm pretty sure they have the proper medical team, the medical equipment to make sure that these athletes and individuals come back and they're in the safest environment. Because, I mean, you're talking, Demetrius, liability. You get into those types of things with parents and, your kid being at a university and it's not properly staffed for this COVID situation. So I think it's going to be kind of over the top, and it should be this year for collegiate football because of, the COVID being so fresh and new, and it's something that we don't understand. I mean, it has its peaks and valleys. So I think that's still something we're in the process of learning more and more. And as we learn from the NFL, I think collegiately they'll be able to handle it a lot better.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see how the NCAA also approaches this legally. Are they going to have these kids sign a waiver? Are they going to, pass a law that says
that's what I do?
Are you going to pass a regulation that says if you play, you're giving up, if you do catch COVID, it's not at the expense of the university. Like I'm really interested to see how they're going to balance all these precautions, and that's why I say sometimes I have to look at the SWAC and say I think they're doing the right thing as far as giving space and giving room.
Good point.
Because I know a lot of people want football to happen, but then you have to look at the cost versus repercussions. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if this thing is going to happen and we start football up and then it pops back up and we have to end football season. So I think the smart thing is to give it time. I'm not saying don't have football in the fall, but I just think we should give it a little leeway to see how this thing goes.
Well, we're going to take a quick break and then we'll be back. If you got any questions, shoot them to us. You can do that on our Facebook page. That's On the Hill Sports Talk. You can do it via our YouTube Live. That's On the Hill Sports Talk LLC. Or you can just hit us up on the phone. That's 601-7400, area code 479. All that'll get you in the OTH. You've been listening to us on KDSJ 479. Back in a minute.
I listened. Obviously, we have a relationship with the Jones family here. They're very supportive of that game. They own that venue. So his feelings on that may be slightly different than mine. But how the schedule plays out, but if that game is moved to College Station, I think it would only be fair that we get that return game here in next year and then potentially resume in Dallas for the final 2 years of that contract. I wouldn't want to see Texas A&M get a home game this year and for us not to get that return game next year.
And then I was wondering if at the meeting you guys discussed what testing would look like during a football season, because I assume the SEC would have some set protocols in place.
We would. I think you'll see some PCR testing that takes place within a 72-hour window of competition, and then potentially that rapid response testing where you can get the results probably Friday night or Saturday morning, where you can get the results back of those tests within about 15 minutes. A PCR test is the gold standard, and that 72 hours, I think, gives coaches a little bit of a bet to plan if a student athlete does test positive, but then you got to follow up with that a little bit closer to game time as well.
All right, Hunter, thank you.
Hey, Hunter. Thanks for doing this.
Hey, Tom.
If the 12-game schedule falls, what's your personal preference for how to schedule the rest that you can try to salvage? 8-1, 8-2. What are your thoughts on spring also personal?
Well, Tom, I personally think if we go to an SEC-only schedule, I think it would be great for Georgia, Florida, Alabama, LSU to all play a home-and-home series to accommodate the majority of their schedules, and the rest of us will figure it out from there. I say that tongue-in-cheek somewhat, but I don't know the coach's idea of a SEC only schedules, but it does provide you some more flexibility as far as scheduling.
Welcome back. It's our Thursday edition here on the Hill Sports Talk Radio on KDSJ 479. And real quick, before we continue on, I want to give a shout out to the sponsors that make this possible. With that being said, Lindsay and Associates with an office location in Fayetteville, an office location also too in Rogers. Locomotion, they're located just below the Northwest Arkansas Mall in Fayetteville. Corey Beck's Custom Painting, and the one we always talk about because we're there all the time, KDK's Chicken. They're down at 989 South Razorback Road. Go see Keith, Kathy, get some of that love. They say it's not your mama's. We say it's the best chicken and waffles in the South. Meet us there or beat us there. That's KDK's Chicken down at 989 Razorback Road. And then continuing on with our discussion, a lot can be said for this football season. I mean, we're in very uncharted waters. And I want to bring in a guy that we have some decisions to make. At the high school level, he does the play-by-play and color analyst. He's kind of the versatile one on the field and sometimes in the press box. And he also does Fayetteville High School basketball with me. I'm going to bring in the man, Jared Fraley. JF,
yes, sir. Thanks for having me, Pat. Man, I had to come catch up with you, find out what's going on. I know you got the scoops, so we got to share it with me.
Being a former athlete, played baseball at the University of Arkansas for Norm DeBryan. Now, what's your take on this football season? You attend the football games. I'm quite sure. And what is your take on how can this season be handled collegiately?
Well, I mean, the football game is a domino that really starts off so many things, from retail marketing, advertising. So many things happen once football begins. I was watching European soccer. I mean, we're down to European soccer, but they're piping in the noise, and the TV's still good, the game's still good, the quality of the game's still there. I like that idea, and up those TV contracts, and let the TVs foot the bill. They're going to be making the money.
Right, and you have to think on that back end for all the tickets that you do have to turn in for those that can't attend this upcoming season. I mean, if TV, like you said, especially the SEC, I mean, if this goes to interconference, all SEC season, and then they can hold on to that Notre Dame game, Jared, I mean, the revenue that you're going to get off TV, I mean, coverage.
Yeah. You're going to get it. And, there's other businesses that need that advertising market, to get their business going. So everybody needs football right
When
now.
you look at it, I mean, a lot of the SEC schools are in very small towns, somewhat similar to Fayetteville, Tuscaloosa, Auburn, Starkville, Mississippi, Oxford, Mississippi. I mean, these aren't big major markets like a Nashville or Knoxville or
all those towns you named. You have to be going there to watch something.
Right, absolutely.
You're not just passing through Starks.
Which leads me to my next question. You are a former Razorback baseball player. When you look back over your time and now you look into the era that Dave Van Horn has brought this program, what's been the main difference? What's been the reason that Arkansas has been able to sustain a very, very successful baseball program? Class.
Norm DeBryan set the stage for what it is to have a class program, what it is to give every athlete a chance. When they walk in over there, whether you're a walk-on trying out or whether you're a scholarship athlete, you're going to get that opportunity. And I think players respect that. They talk about that. And Van Horn continued it. He was part of DeBryan's disciples coming there. I mean, it's just class. That's what it starts with.
Now, you study that roster quite a bit. What's your assessment of this collection of talent that Van Horn has for this year and years going forward? I mean,
I hate it for Opitz and love it for us. We got the best catcher in the country. Could probably start on most major league rosters. Coming back to Fayetteville, baby.
Right. Who's that one player, Jared, that if he comes out and has a great season for the baseball team, could take this team to that next level? Because they were just and you hate to think about it. Now, it's hard for me to talk about it. They were a bounce ball away from hoisting the national championship. Who are maybe that player or players that you see in this upcoming season that you're going to have your eye on, being a former
Gosh,
Razorback?
there's a lot of those guys coming back with the chip on their shoulder, something to prove. It's tough when you lose a year to the draft like this. A lot of those you know, a Blake Parker type guy. That 12th rounder, that 12th rounder was lost. And,
Right.
you know, that's a guy that, you know, if you get in the right developmental program in the minors, you're in the majors.
Right.
And there's so many of those guys. You know, Arkansas is now loaded with the roster of those guys. And so, you know, Opitz is, I don't know how he can have a better season than what he's gunning people down at 75, 80% in the SEC. I mean, that's ridiculous.
What's your assessment of Hester Kerstad and Casey Martin? Those guys moved on first, second pick, and Casey went in the third round. I mean, where do you see those guys, you know, have watched their and kind of monitored their careers here in Fayetteville?
You know, the GM for Baltimore is a sharp cat. You know, he had built up that Washington team, and he moved over to Baltimore, I believe it was. You know, Kerstad's playing in some short porches in the AL East out there.
Right.
It's a great move. I mean, he can get that ball up in the air quick in Fenway and Yankee Stadium, Toronto. You know, he's a great pickup, a great addition. I'm interested about guys in the NL that we're adding that DL.
Right.
Man, baby, we're going to see some balls flying out there. Too.
Hey, Major League starts is it today?
Yeah, if you play a line, go with that over/under on them runs scored.
Oh, yeah, I forgot you're a Dodger fan. I forgot this guy here, Demetrius, is a major Dodger fan. Unfortunately, I'm an A's fan. Just like this dude is a Cowboys fan as well.
You're welcome. Come
Circle
on
the
now.
wagons. That's all I can say.
You
Circle
know,
the wagons.
you know, when you're growing up like that, you just have. I mean, I'm a Hog fan too. I mean, I was born that way. I can't help it.
Which also leads me, Jared. You and I, we do local high school football for the Fayetteville Purple Dogs on a local station, FM 106.1 Red Dirt Radio, and we will be doing it this year. For those that listen, what's your assessment of this Bulldog football team? After having a year to watch what I consider it was a senior-dominated team, but really there was a lot of inexperience on that team as well. I mean, first time in many years that the Purple Dogs, I think, lost 6 games.
Lost 6 games to 4 state champions.
Right.
I mean, this was a team that battled. You know, it's a double-edged sword. They need football for Isaiah. If Isaiah skips football this year, he needs it for his development.
Right.
You know, he's world class in another sport.
Right.
And unfortunately for Casey Dick, he's in Fayetteville, Arkansas, where we know what jumpers and sprinters are. And when you're talking about a guy that can go 25,
And
he's a foot away from world class.
Over on the hill, on the track team.
Yeah, I mean, I
Competence even
hope
more.
we have Isaiah back in football.
Fayetteville quarterback situation. Anybody out there, any names that we've heard of, you know, because that was a position that really hampered them last year to a certain degree.
Yeah, I haven't quite heard. I know it's going to be a battle. I would Isaiah to the left, Isaiah to the right.
Right,
He's
you got to
back
get the
out.
ball in his hands. Who's the team that we need that fans need to watch out for, and just going out and watching 6A West football, Jared. Can you describe the feel of what it feels like and why fans should go out and support these local high school football games?
You know, the high school level, it's got great talent, and we're seeing it. Pittman's spotting this talent quickly. You know, he's picked up some guys on preferred walk-ons right away from some of the Bentonville schools. Fayetteville, he's quick to sign the 2022 class. You know, Houston Nutt did that. When he came in, he said, I've got to sew up these borders.
Hey, and by the way, Mr. Vernon Johnson, one of our really good callers all the way from Birmingham, says that you have really good taste because you like the Dodgers, the Cowboys, and the Razorbacks. So I want to give you a shout out, Mr. Vernon.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, I like that, Mr.
Oh,
Vernon.
and in words, is this they like because they win championships?
That's right,
Yeah.
plural.
You got to add that S to it.
Absolutely.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, but we'll be back with much, much more. You're listening to On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479. Back in a sec.
And just how the chemistry that already exists between him and Eric and the rest of the staff.
I had one follow-up with if A&M wants to move that game to College Station, I mean, it obviously takes 2 to tango. Do you have to agree to Greg Sankey have the final word on that, or what happens if A&M says we want it in College Station? You say no. The contract says we play in Arlington. How does that get worked out?
I think very similar to the games in Little Rock. I think that the Commissioner of the Southeastern Conference is the final arbitrator on that.
Okay, thanks, Kyle.
Nick.
Hi, Hunter. Financially, would it be more prudent to just not have a season at all, or to start it and then have to stop the season? Like, is there? I know T, you'd rather play if you can play.
But I mean, financially, obviously, whatever number of games that we can start and play helps us in a number of areas. The ticket sales piece, the donations piece, scene, the television revenue with the SEC network, CBS, as well as ESPN. So even if it's an abbreviated schedule of 8 games, that's much better for us financially than playing 0 games.
And then have you and the other athletic directors kind of talked about what kind of impact all this is going to have on, just teams having a level playing field on game day?
Obviously, there's gamesmanship that exists just in college sports in general, and that's why not that we want to follow what the Big Ten did, and because our first option, as I said, was a 12-game schedule, but to have a conference-only schedule gives you some flexibility. If you have a team that just cannot compete, if say their first-string offense is all wiped out because of how they meet, you'd have the ability to reschedule that game later in the year if you have a conference-only schedule.
Welcome back to On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio here on KDSJ 479. It's your show today. For if you have any questions, want to call with any comments, feel free to do so at 601-7400, area code 479. If you aren't comfortable talking on the phone, because most people aren't, they aren't comfortable with calling in. And that's understandable. You can also reach out to us via our Facebook live stream. That's On the Hill Sports Talk. Or you can do that also on our YouTube live stream. That's On the Hill Sports Talk, LLC. Just reach out to us. We want to talk hogs, high school, recruit, everything under the sun. We'll try to give our honest and real opinion, because that's how we do it here. You can't cut and paste us, Demetrius. You know that? There's no cut and paste at all. But we want to talk about if there is a football season. Arkansas's got 3 young men that are getting quite the recognition. We told you about Rakeem Boyd up for the Doak Walker watch list. But there's 2 more young men here in the last 48 hours that's been honored on watch list. With that being said, Traylon Burks, the super sophomore, he's on the Jim Thorpe Award, and that is to be expected. I expect this young man, and people say Rakeem Boyd, but I'm going to say this is the most important player on the offense. Not only this year, I'm going to take it a step further. We're talking about next year, too. Traylon Burks has a chance to put up some major numbers in this Kendall Browse offense. And with the new focus of offensive line play and a veteran at quarterback in Felipe Franks, my man, TB could put up some major action this year on the football field.
Yeah, absolutely. If I'm not mistaken, he didn't get a touchdown last year.
No.
So
that's so crazy.
Nah, I love it. I love it because he's gonna have a coming out party this year. I think he's gonna break a record.
And Demetrius, when you think about it, Jerry Jeudy did this. He didn't have a great freshman year, but that sophomore year, well, we saw what he did out there at Razorback. We saw that. Track meet he was running.
Because I honestly believe they overused Traylon. I believe.
I didn't think they used him in the correct way last year.
I think they had him playing too many duties. They were throwing back there on kick return. They were having back there at punt return. And I'm not saying he's not that type of athlete that he can't go play those positions, but I think he's such a threat at receiver that he's such an athlete. You let him go be 100% in that position. And I think that was what kind of staggered him from really being a great receiver, because he has so many duties and there were so many expectations of what he was supposed to do on the team versus just going out there being a freshman and saying, hey guy, I just need you to go out there and catch touchdowns for me. But they had him catching punts.
So is he an inside or an outside guy this year?
Oh, he's definitely outside. I mean, Traylon Burks can be.
And then we're going to throw that question over to Mr. Fraley about Burks.
Definitely.
Where he would like to see him play. I'm more of a inside, outside. I think you use him in matchup situations. I think Traylon has to be a matchup problem every time he's on the football field, which is going to command at least 2 people. There's only 11 that can play, so if 2 of them are guarding Traylon, then there's going to be a numbers game. And when you look across at Mike Woods, Trey Knox, Raheem Boyd, another position I think has to step up, Demetrius, is the tight end spot. Who's going to step up and be that tight end that on third down, when you can't get it to those receivers that we mentioned, can get in, work the seams and the flat routes? And who's going to be that guy that Frank can dump the ball to?
Well, starting with your first question about Burks, I think Burks is an outside guy. When you look at his play, he reminds me of like a modern-day T.O., but I think he's, a little bit shiftier than T.O. T.O. was kind of a stretch the field kind of guy,
right.
A vertical threat, and I think Traylon can be that, but I think he can actually do some things after he catches the ball. Then going on as far as to the tight end, I believe the tight end, I feel like we had the athletes on campus that anybody can fill that role.
Right.
I feel like if you look at the supporting cast that's on our offense, from Raheem Boyd being the running back to, like you said, Mike Woods to Trey Knox, Traylon's getting a lot of attention, but I think Trey Knox is just as equally as dangerous and is going to have it's just an important role as him, if not more, because he's going to be almost like that Kobe Hamilton that year we had. The trio of receivers, and he was kind of that fourth option that, when they did get double team or when they did stack the box or just called a good defensive play, they stopped
also
it.
too, one big addition that Arkansas was able to acquire through the grad transfer market is A.J. Reed, a guy out of Duke. He's on the Lou Groza watch list, and kicking game has been especially in particular the punting game, has really been a thorn in Arkansas' side over the last 2 years. I can go back to that North Texas game. Probably the most embarrassing punt coverage situation I've ever had to witness at Razorback Stadium. And I'll even go a step further, because that's my word today, going a step further. That's the word. Probably the worst punt coverage I've seen at the University of Arkansas, or I could say egregious. Did you like that word? See, Jared, he heard me say that a lot.
Definitely, because Arkansas was on ESPN a couple of times.
Man, I'm telling you that North Texas one though. My goodness, I can't even talk about it. There's no words to describe it. I'm one that likes to talk to me. I like to talk.
The funniest one though, what was crazy, because it was on like 3 different ESPN takes, because you got ESPN
they still
top
play
10
that on the SEC blooper. The Sports Center bloopers.
The best one was Randy Moss. No, it's not Randy Moss. Chris Carter. Come on, man.
That's
hey, Chris talk bad about. Chris talk bad about us.
That's what we're gonna do this year. We're gonna come up at OTH. Let's make it a OTH Come On Man segment. Each and every week, we're gonna have our Come On Man moments of every
I'm gonna have to find a play.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna do that. We're gonna have a lot of, because there was a lot over the last 3 years, man. When you go 1-23, that's a great big come on, man.
Hey, no, I can't talk about that one play we always talk about last year.
Well, the guy was running in circles. Nah, we don't want to get off into that way.
That was crazy.
The only time I've ever seen a player run in circles for about 4 seconds. And now I'm going to move on, and I want to get this former Razorback baseball player, Jared, your take. Traylon Burks. How important, in your opinion, who's the most important offensive player for this version of the 20?
I think Burks is that matchup problem for every defensive coordinator, because if you can get him in one-on-one with any D-back, he just towers them. And he can break loose on any short, you can just run an extended handoff basically out there to him. Pop it to him in the flat and let him break that first tackle and go. And there's not a linebacker that can keep up with him speed-wise. So I think what you're trying to do all game is find that one-on-one with him, whether put him in motion, keep him wide, bring him across the middle, whatever it takes. We got to find that matchup. And I don't think there's people that can match up, but that's a battle every week for defensive coordinators. How do we match up with this guy? And that's brutal, because D-backs have to be little.
Jared, Raheem Boyd up for the Doak Walker. He's on the Doak Walker watch list. Comes in as, I believe, the leading rusher in the SEC. Going to have a large bullseye on his chest. The guy averaged 6.2 yards a carry, which, that offensive line took a lot of ribbing. But they really stood up and paved the way for this guy to have some success, and are partly the reason why he's getting what he's getting. But talk about Raheem, is this a guy that you can give the ball to 20 to 25 times, or is it in the SEC? You have to have about 3 or 4.
You know, Pat, I've been really impressed with this guy's character. I mean, he took some beatings here with, some of those line matchups. He's ran into some walls, and he's had every right to, maybe let his attitude or, enthusiasm slide a little bit, but he hasn't.
Right.
He goes out there, he's a workhorse. He can catch the ball in the flat. He's a matchup problem. I've liked him for a long time. I just feel like, we can't run him up the middle sometimes last year without, we lose him for a couple plays there at the sideline. We want to exploit him to the outside. He has great boundary speed. It's just hard to get out there and cover him.
Which leads to my next question. With that being said, Arkansas has had a lot of short yardage problems. With the added strength that Coach Pittman and Coach Davis and that mentality they brought to the university, as we've already been reported that Cunningham goes from 287 to 319. Ricky Stromborg played at 270. He's a 300-pounder. There's just been a lot of weight gains on the offensive line, which when you gain weight and strength, you're by all intents and purposes going to gain confidence. And really, when Coach Pittman and you have a chance to play for him, that's even more of a confidence builder. Talk about the offensive line. They've just been ribbed the last 2 years.
They have been, and anybody that's got any moxie, they're going to take that as a chip and build on it. I'm a little curious, an extended version of the offensive line. Where's the Henry kid? How's he developing?
Right.
He can, a brother with the knowledge he has on how to find the open hole for that. You were talking earlier, how do you get that little short yardage or that hot route? A brother that's developed in the league, knowing how to teach his little brother how to get open for those hot routes, how to find that push off of the inside linebacker and get to the outside. I'm curious on how Pittman develops him.
I'm real curious, but as far as being, like I said, a former alum of the athletic program, your overall assessment for the coaches on this campus, you start with Pittman. He's not had his first collegiate football game, but the culture he's starting to build. Then you look at Eric Musselman, Mike Neighbors, softball, Courtney Deifel, and Van Horn. Just the cultures that these coaches on this campus. I mean, have you ever had a time or been around a time where it's been this brandable top to bottom?
Well, I think the coaches realize they have to work together to build the overall brand.
Right.
They each help each other, and they need to pull for each other. It doesn't work, where Arkansas is at, they need each other really bad. Musselman has a great ability to get out there and put his name out social media-wise, understands the pro game. You got Van Horn, who's just doing his thing too. Lets the recruits take a picture in the football and baseball outfit. The unis. That's a slick thing.
I bet you was playing that. Have you been by there and seen the addition that's about to take place at Baum Stadium?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Man, I mean, wouldn't that be nice? I mean, talk about.
We're going to have everybody there.
The difference between George Cole and Baum.
Oh my gosh!
Did you get a chance to play?
The difference in a Pinto and a Ferrari. I mean, come on, Pat. George Cole, I remember working, practicing when, the national championship basketball teams were selling out every night, and they parking cars in our outfield while we were trying to practice.
Yeah, I remember that.
Parking cars. We were working out around cars. I mean, we had 300 people, maybe. And we kind of hog-noshes twice.
Jared, toughest environment you ever played in, during your time as a Razorback baseball player. Where was it?
Alex Box. And that irritating son of a gun yelling, "Here we go, Tigers, here we go." That was the worst place.
What did he say, Jared?
Oh, it was terrible. It was terrible. We had, they were slinging, racial slurs at Darren Masanda, who was Hawaiian and a whole nother ethnicity. I mean, they didn't even mind that they were ignorant racists. They were just after you. But the box at night was tough, not to mention those Louisiana Skeeters.
Talking with Jared Fraley. He's in studio. He also does play-by-play, Fayetteville High School football and basketball, boys and girls basketball with me on FM 106.1 Red Dirt Radio. It's coming up. Also, too, Jared's a former Razorback alum, played baseball for Norm DeBryan. Before we get off here, Jared, what's the fondest memories that you have, and what made it so special to play baseball in your hometown, grew up backyard here in Fayetteville, went to Farmington, Fayetteville, and eventually had that chance to play for the university. But, what's the fondest memories you have during your time on that campus?
The fondest memory is putting that jersey on for the first time. It says Razorbacks on it. I mean, as a kid, you see that growing up. You see the likes of, Dennis Fletcher and Bubba Carpenter.
Right.
I watched the first game with the lights at George Cole when Roger Clemens came in with Texas, pitched and lost. But when you actually put it on and that Razorbacks on you, you hold yourself to a different character, man. You're a hog at that moment. Really, there ain't nothing can change you from that point on.
How many years till this team wins the national championship? I'm giving in the next 2. I think they can win 2 of the next 3. That's just my personal opinion. I think with the talent they're starting to recruit.
We got to see some starting pitching. I'm curious about that. It still isn't just concrete, carved out.
You're just tough on the pitchers, aren't you?
Pitching's tough. Pitching in the SEC on Friday night is the toughest
pitching
job.
Pitching in the SEC the SEC is like having a great offensive or defensive line or a great point guard in basketball. If you don't have that, you don't even have the foundation for winning.
Friday night in the SEC is like a major league playoff game.
You're not a kid.
You got to bring it.
Well, guys, that's going to do it for today's show. I mean, a great one. We love having our former Razorback baseball player, Jared Fraley, and my colleague and my sidekick during the Fayetteville High athletic broadcasts of Fayetteville football and boys and girls basketball.
Having me on, Pat. I appreciate you.
We want to give a shout out to all of our sponsors that make this possible. That being said, Lindsay and Associates with an office location in Fayetteville, an office location also too in Rogers. That's Locomotion. It's located just below the Northwest Arkansas Mall in Fayetteville. Corey Beck's Custom Painting, and the last one, KDK's Chicken. They're down at 989 South Razorback Road. Go see Keith and Kathy. Get some of that love. They say it on the building. It's not your mama's. We say it's the best chicken and waffles in the South. Meet us there or beat us there. That's KDK's Chicken at 989 South Razorback Road. For my producer, Demetrius Johnson, myself, and to all of our viewers, keep chiming in, keep viewing, because we love the support and we love the chats. We always do, but we still got a show tomorrow, and we hope you're here with us as well. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins, and it's been the Thursday edition on KDSJ 479. You guys have a blessed one. Y'all already know what the words are. Let's get it.